This is TWiT.
It is time to talk about Samsung's latest devices. Yes, Samsung has announced a slew of new devices. It actually did so yesterday as we record this on Thursday. Joining us today to talk about Samsung's new hardware is Ben Schoon of 9 to 5 Google. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, great to get you on to talk about this stuff. Let's kick things off with the Galaxy Z Flip 5 and the Fold 5. In your piece, you mentioned that the phones are quote, very iterative. Is there anything to get excited about with these new devices? And should folks who own the Fold 4 or the Flip 4 consider upgrading to the 5s?
Well, as far as things to get excited about, they are objectively better phones. They've got a faster chip in the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. The thinner profile, I actually have my Flip 5 here. The thinner profile is very nice. And then on the Flip, you have the new cover screen, which is actually genuinely useful now. As far as upgrading, if you have a Fold 4, it is definitely not worth going to a Fold 5 because the differences are so minimal. The other day, I actually was holding my Fold 4 in my pocket while I was getting ready to set up the Fold 5. Didn't even realize it was the Fold 4. I thought it was the Fold 5. The Flip 5 is a genuinely good upgrade, especially with the trade-in, because you can get $900 for a Fold 4 or for a Flip 4. It's only $100 to upgrade. That's absolutely worth it. But Fold 4 to Fold 5, definitely not.
Understood. Now, what is new in the latest versions outside of that display? Because I want to talk a little bit more about that display in a moment. But are we getting better cameras? Are we getting better button click feel? Does it have a scent now? What did they change?
Well, they have the exact same cameras. One of the new things is the hinge on both of them. It is now a hinge that has a water drop inside, so the display doesn't condensed down quite as far as on the previous versions, which means that the gap that used to be in place on the older versions is gone. There's still a little bit of a gap, but it's not to a big point. And that makes the phones much thinner. And you feel that especially on the Fold 5. It is a much thinner, much lighter phone, which is really genuinely nice. But really in terms of hardware, they're basically the same. Some of the new colors are nice. I like the blue on the Fold 5, and I like the mint color on the Flip 5. But really, they're the same phones. The crease hasn't changed. It's really just a hinge gap and a new chip under the hood. That's about it.
Got it. Did you say a water drop, like a droplet of water?
So not an actual water droplet. The shape of the screen when it's folded up is the shape of a water drop. That's just what that's called.
Got it.
But it basically just means there's more room when the display is folded up, so it's not quite as tight. Normally that would fix a crease, but for whatever reason, Samsung's implementation just did not do that.
Understood. Okay. So then with these phones, one would think that availability would be soon if they just sort of, just go down the line and pop out the chip and pop in a new one. When are we looking at being able to get our hands on the latest 5 or Flip and Fold 5? And of course, talk about pricing. You mentioned that trade-in thing, but what are the standard prices for these new phones?
Yeah, so at least in the United States, pricing hasn't changed. It's still $999 for the Flip and $1799 for the Fold. Trade-in offers are really good. You can get about $900 from Samsung at the most for the Flip, towards a Flip, and you can get $1,000 towards a Fold, which is it's a great deal. Should the prices have gone down, that's up for discussion. But pre-orders are open now, and everything starts shipping, I think, August 11th.
Understood. Okay. Well, then let's move along because that pretty much takes care of the Flip 5 and Fold 5 to talk about the Galaxy Watch 6. Yes, it has. We've made it all the way to the 6th version. Tell us about what's new here. Certainly a lot, right?
If only. The Watch 6 and the Watch 6 Classic, the regular Watch 6 is a Watch 5, just with a new chip. The new chip is the Exynos W930. It's a little bit faster, it's a little more efficient, and it gave them the ability to make the watch just a little bit slimmer while still giving it a bigger battery. So it should have much better battery life. It feels nice on the wrist, but there's really not that much new. Except they did also make the bezels a little bit smaller, which means there's a bigger display. It's a good look. The Watch 6 Classic, same thing. It's just a new chip in the same design that was used in the Watch 4 Classic, but that means they brought back the rotating bezel, which is always nice to have.
Yeah, that's one of the things. As an Apple Watch user, I have always been jealous of that idea of the rotating bezel. I think it's one of the things I used to love about non-smart watches that I've owned in the past, and it's just a nice little fidget built into my wrist. And this is an actual practical fidget. For folks who aren't aware of Samsung's offerings, what does that sort of tactile mechanism do in the software?
So in Wear OS, because these are Wear OS watches, the rotating bezel acts kind of like a scroll wheel. So just like on the Apple Watch, how you have the what do they call it? The
digital crown.
That will let you scroll through things, and then certain apps let it zoom in and stuff like that. It basically will do the same thing. You scroll one way, the interface will go down. You scroll the other way, it'll go up. And then I think if you're on the home screen, it'll let you scroll through your widgets, which is a nice little touch.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I'll ask the same question here. Is this a worthy upgrade for folks who are rocking the last model of the Galaxy watches?
It's honestly a tough one. If you're having trouble with your battery life over time and stuff like that, it might be worth upgrading. But realistically, the Watch 4 to the Watch 6, there's only so many differences, and none of them are really worth the cost. But there's like with the Folds and the Flip, Samsung has trade-in deals. I don't know them off the top of my head, but it'll make a dent in the cost.
And availability, when will folks be able to get their, I guess, wrists on these?
So it's the same as the Fold and Flip. They'll be shipping August 11th, and the Watch 6 starts at $299 and the Classic at $399, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Oh, wow. Those are really good prices. Again, coming from the Apple Watch world, where it's rather expensive. Okay, cool. And then the other big announcement is the Galaxy Tab S9. And you talk a little bit about how Android tablets kind of as a whole are making a comeback. I was hoping you could start there before we dig into this specific model and talk about the accessories that it has and everything else, because again, I want to sort of cover the whole gamut of our listeners. When you say that Android tablets are making a bit of a comeback, I assume you mean in comparison to where we are with tablets right now. And I mean, the only other tablet I've seen out in the wild are those very inexpensive tablets from Amazon that folks will occasionally buy for their kids. But Android tablets are back.
Yeah, so Android tablets, they've always had a reputation of not being as good as the iPad. And through the pandemic, they've kind of resurged in popularity. People started taking an interest again. Back in the day, we had a bunch of Android tablets. Back in the Nexus days, Google had a whole lineup of Nexus tablets, and Samsung had a bunch of tablets, and everyone had a bunch of tablets. So you could get a different size, you could get different performance, different prices, everything. Before 2020, that was kind of stopping. No one was making Android tablets anymore. Google was done. Lenovo was kind of taking a back seat on it. And even Samsung really wasn't experimenting as much. They had cheap ones and they had expensive ones, and that was it. Now they're kind of making a comeback. We just had the Pixel tablet launch last month. And now Samsung's refreshing what was already the best Android tablet out there.
Okay, so yes, let's talk about the what is it? The S9, the S9 Plus, and the S9 Ultra. That's a lot of tablets. Talk about the differences between them. And then again, in your piece, you mentioned that it's kind of an accessories game this time around.
Yeah, so Tab S9 is an 11-inch tablet. The S9 Plus is, I think, like a 12.5-inch, and the S9 Ultra is a giant, ridiculous 14-inch tablet, which that's for someone, I'm sure. It's not for me. But the big upgrade this year with all three of them is that they're IP68 water resistant, which is very rare in high-end tablets, especially nice-looking ones. And then also the 11-inch now has an AMOLED screen, because in previous years, Samsung's big selling point has always been OLED displays in tablets, but they always let the 11-inch have a LCD display. So it's a nice upgrade to have that this year as well. But yeah, the accessories were really what caught my eye when I got to play around with them, because realistically, they're the same software. They're, One UI, Android 13, multitasking, all that stuff. But the accessories really impressed me. They have an official rugged case this year, which seems really protective, but isn't like really overly thick like a lot of other ones are. They have their keyboard, they have a folio case, they have a really nice official origami case, which can fold to where you can have the tablet in landscape view and then also in portrait view, depending on how you set it up. And then they also have there's an S Pen included, which is nice. And there's, a lot of the cases have docking options for that. One of the ones that really caught my attention is, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a special attachment for one of the cases that lets you put a clear piece of plastic over the display. One of them is completely clear and is designed to make it feel like you're writing on paper when you're using the S Pen.
Ooh, cool.
The other one has the same texture, but it's a privacy filter. So if you're using the tablet out in public, people can't see what you're seeing if they're off angle. It's just only you can see it. And both of those have existed in traditional screen protectors, but those are like you install them, they're on there all the time. And a privacy film especially is kind of annoying if it's there all the time. So I think it's really cool that they have it to where you can just kind of use it on demand.
That is okay. That's really cool because yes, I was actually surprised at how many quote unquote normal people I see who are using those privacy filtering screens, and I thought of like, man, I'd hate to have that on my phone at all times because it does make a difference in what you can see through it, or in this case, a tablet. What you see through the tablet. But I think about like healthcare people buying these in bulk and being able to have that on there temporarily, but maybe outside of when they're doing that, they could have that taken off. That's a pretty clever idea. Now, these three options and forgive me, I don't have the historical knowledge of Samsung. Has Samsung in the past offered multiple tablet sizes like this? And if they have they ever done a 14-inch tablet?
Yeah, so this year's lineup is literally just a refresh of last year. Last year, they also had S8, S8 Plus, and S8 Ultra, and they were all the same size. The only difference this year in terms of the hardware is, like I said, it's water resistant, and then you have OLED on the smallest model. But this is only the second year they're doing that. So if you're kind of looking to, buy on the S model, get the better version, this is definitely the year to do that.
Understood. My last question for you. I joked about it along the way, but it does seem to be like a very iterative year for Samsung models. Now, Apple, as the comparison here, does a year where it's a pretty all new design or an all new look and feel. This is for the iPhone, and then a year where it iterates, and then it's the TikTok cycle, right? What is it? You never know with Samsung. Is it that things tend to be pretty iterative? Is it that this year kind of stands out as a super, okay, I guess these are the latest devices? Just give me your insight about what's going on here. And if you think that folks will be encouraged to buy these latest and allegedly greatest devices from Samsung.
Yeah, I'd say with Samsung, you never really know what you're going to get. Like, they don't follow a strict pattern. But I don't think that makes these bad devices. Like, I think all of these are objectively going to be the latest and greatest. They're just not all that different. It's going to be, if you're the kind of person who jumps on every single upgrade as it comes out, these are really, really boring. But if you're someone who hasn't upgraded their phone or is, looking for their first foldable, these are great foldables. If this is your first tablet in like 5-6 years, the Tab S9 is great. And the same thing with the watch. If you're still on a Tizen wearable, because those are starting to lose update support, this is a great place to jump in. You've got a better design, you've got better performance, and things have kind of stabilized from the switch to Wear OS. So yeah, it's boring from someone who's just looking in because they're like constantly like, oh, what's the latest? What's the latest? But if you've been waiting for your time to upgrade, this is really a good time because things are as stable as they're going to get. Because surely we can't have another year that's quite this iterative.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Ben, I want to thank you so much for your time today, taking me, someone who's not as versed in all of this, through everything, and also for our listeners out there who might be curious about what's going on with Samsung. Of course, folks can head to 9to5 Google to check out your work. But if they want to follow you online and keep up with what you're doing, where should they go to do so?
Well, yeah, you'll see me on 9to5 Google all day, every day. But if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter, Threads, and every other competitor at Nexus.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
This episode of Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. ACI Learning's courses are easy to navigate, and their structure is much more straightforward than traditional training programs. Try it for yourself, and then bring the whole team along. For individuals, use the code TWiT30 for 30% off a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership at go.acilearning.com/twit.